It was the summer of 2018 in a small town in rural Indiana when I met Chloe. I was just 22, fresh out of college and still finding my footing. My life felt like a blank page, and I was eager to start writing something interesting. Chloe seemed like the perfect co-author. She was bright, charming, and just as eager to see the world as I was. We bonded over late-night coffee shop runs and shared dreams of traveling. Our relationship was a whirlwind, a beautiful, breathless sprint. But even in those idyllic early days, the first cracks began to show. My best friend, Sam, a guy who knew me better than anyone, was immediately suspicious. He thought Chloe was too much, too intense, too possessive. Her jealousy started small, with sarcastic comments about me talking to female friends, and then it escalated to demanding to know where I was at all times. My mom tried to gently warn me that Chloe's grip seemed too tight. I dismissed their concerns, convincing myself that it was just her way of showing she cared. This was my illusory, ordinary world, where I was blind to the red flags waving right in front of my face. The real terror began subtly. One night, after a minor argument about my plans to visit a friend, Chloe had a nightmare. She woke up screaming, saying she dreamed I had left me stranded on a deserted highway. She clung to me, trembling, and later that week, she confessed that she had installed a GPS tracking app on my phone just to be safe. When I discovered it, she apologized profusely, saying she was just scared of losing me. I, foolishly, believed her. It wasn't about safety. It was about coercive control. Her manipulation was a slow-burn dread that grew day by day. She started auditing my phone, scrolling through my texts and social media messages, questioning every single interaction. She would use the GPS data to call me and check in at precisely the moments I was supposed to be somewhere else, twisting the truth to make me feel guilty. She was a puppet master, pulling the strings of my life and making me question my own reality. The culmination of this psychological abuse was a physical confrontation that I'll never forget. It was a cold November night, and I had finally worked up the courage to tell her I couldn't do this anymore. She became enraged. She cornered me in my own apartment, screaming at me, her face contorted in a terrifying way I had never seen before. She grabbed me, and for a moment I truly feared for my life. The fear made my mind go completely blank. When I finally broke free and ran, she followed me, screaming threats down the street. It was a terrifying experience that left me so shaken I couldn't even bring myself to report it to the police. The psychological conditioning had worked. I was too confused, too disoriented to think clearly. I cut all contact with her, but the horror didn't end. My life became a stalking thriller. I started seeing her car everywhere, parked across the street from my house, a few cars behind me on my way to work, even outside the gym. This relentless pursuit was a constant, terrifying reminder that she hadn't given up. I changed my routines, but she always found me. The terror wasn't in a direct confrontation. It was in the anticipation, the knowledge that I was always being watched. Then, one day, I received a cryptic package in the mail. No return address, just my name handwritten on the box. Inside was a small, crudely made doll with my name scribbled on it. The head was twisted around backwards, and a single, long strand of my own hair was woven into the doll's hair. I knew it was from her. The chill that ran down my spine was instant and profound. The horror had moved from psychological torment to a tangible, disturbing, symbolic threat. I immediately went to the police, and thankfully, they took the matter seriously. The detective, a kind woman with a no-nonsense attitude, told me that this kind of escalating behavior was a serious red flag. She told me to get a restraining order and to take every precaution I could. I now have a restraining order against her, and she has left me alone, at least for now. The last I heard, she moved to a different state. But the feeling of being watched never truly goes away. I'm 26 now, and I've worked through a lot of the issues she left me with. I have an incredible group of friends, and my life is pretty great. But I still check my rearview mirror. I still feel a jolt of anxiety when a car lingers too long behind me. The narrative of my life has not been neatly concluded, it has simply transitioned to a new chapter. I'm no longer the protagonist in a horror story, but the lingering fear is a testament that evil is not conquered, only delayed. My name is Greg. I broke up with Naomi a month before my 22 birthday. I thought I'd escaped the worst of it. I was wrong. We met at the cafe where I worked nights, stacking shelves and wiping counters. She had a laugh that made the fluorescent lights warmer, and she memorized the exact way I stirred my coffee. At first, it felt normal, two people bumping into each other and deciding to stay. She moved fast, photos pinned to the wall, weekends planned 3 months out, keys left on a little hook by my door. I thought it was romance. I thought it was devotion. The small things started to fray sooner than I realized. Naomi would show up where I was, outside the university library, at the bus stop, just by chance, until those coincidences stacked into a pattern. She corrected my texts in the middle of arguments, rewrote memories in the softest voice until I began to doubt my own. Friends called me lucky in the first weeks. Then they began to say nothing when she monopolized a conversation, when she leaned into my shoulder in a group photo and wouldn't move. The fight that finished us was petty. A sweater left on a chair, a conversation about money, a name said the wrong way. I told her I needed space. She told me she couldn't live like that. She cried, I left. I thought clear air would come after the door closed. I thought wrong. Naomi didn't take the breakup well. She began to show up at my shifts. She called until my phone lit up like a Christmas tree at dawn. She texted poetry that turned into accusations, that I'd traded her for someone safe, that I'd always been ashamed of her. I blocked her number. She texted from a friend's phone. I changed my number. Someone knocked at midnight anyway. The first real scare was subtle. I woke to my window rattling like someone huffing on the other side. Blinds down, curtains closed, I lay there, heartbeat loud, and watched a shadow move across the slats. A soft knock, then a pause, then the whisper of my name through glass. I didn't answer. In the morning, I found fingerprints on the outside of the pane, greasy and thumb-shaped, smeared like a signature from someone who'd been there for a while. A week later, when I was playing games to avoid thinking about it, someone banged on my front window so hard the sill shook. I pulled the curtains aside and saw Naomi, eyes rimmed red, face hollow in the alley light, standing on the path with a hoodie on and a man at her side I'd never seen before. When I opened the door, she folded into those reopenings of love, sorrowful, apologetic, hands on my arms. The man at her side melted into the shadows. He stepped behind the yew tree, peeking through leaves. That's when I realized we weren't alone. I slammed the door, called 911, and watched them drive off when I showed a trembling officer the screen where my call sat connected. The officer wrote it down in a calm that didn't touch the panic in my veins, and left. He said, "We'll patrol the area." I slept with my sneakers on by the bed. Over the next few months, the harassment became inventive and personal. She'd leave a sweater on my stair landing, the same cheap knit I'd once owned, smelling faintly of her perfume. I'd find Polaroids tucked into my mailbox, me at a park bench where I'd been that afternoon, me at a lecture, me leaving the cafe. Polaroids are tiny, grainy things, but they made the world shrink. An image of yourself turned into evidence that someone had been following you. One evening, I found my phone screen inside a clear evidence bag on my kitchen table. An officer had come by after someone found my device tossed in a canal a few blocks away. He set it down like a crime scene prop and said, "We think it was taken during a scare." I knew then she'd been in my life when I wasn't looking. I knew then she had the capacity to cross the lines I had assumed were there. The worst day was Naomi was arrested months later for trespassing at another man's apartment. She was released on bail and vanished from my direct life for a while. When she resurfaced, it wasn't in the form of late-night knocks, but in the erosion that follows terror. Friends who tiptoed around the story, colleagues who asked if I was over it yet, like trauma is a thing you can check off. I changed apartments. I blocked social accounts. I stopped posting pictures. I slept with the lights on for months. Even now, years later, I flinch at the sound of a knock that isn't a knock. If a car parks too long down the street or a stray footstep lingers outside my door, my lungs narrow and my hands go cold. Sometimes I wake thinking I hear a camera click. Sometimes I catch myself checking the windows with the same methodical sweep I used the night I found the Polaroid. People ask if I regret moving in with her. Regret is a complicated thing. I regret the trust I gave too freely, yes. I regret the times I shrugged off a knock as probably nothing. But regret also sits next to something else, a lesson carved in the slow, careful text of survival. I learned to make noise when the wrong people appear. I learned to let others in, friends, the police, anyone who would help light the room when my fear made the shadows too loud.